Hey everyone, it's Elhaze. Welcome back to my channel. We're gonna do a video that's pertaining to Halloween since I thought it would make sense to get something out that helps celebrate a holiday that I at least enjoy, even if I don't really go to a party or anything. I'm actually planning a Halloween stream, so be sure to check that out, and I'll link my Twitch in the description below so you can join and check out my stream then. It'll be a bunch of horror games, and I'm a wimp at horror games, so you can laugh at me during it. So for this video, I'm going to go over some movies, games, books, and haunted places, or horror-esque places, that I think are either dark, horror, or Halloween at least. Because I am kind of a wimp when it comes to books and games, they're not as jump scary as you may want in just the horror genre. So without further ado, let's get into the video. To start off, I'm gonna be talking about movies I liked when I was younger. They're gonna start with the ones that were definitely geared towards children and progressing towards things that actually kind of spooked me a decent amount. You have to have your classics. We all stayed up to watch ABC's Family's however many days of Halloween and would want to see Hocus Pocus. What a phenomenal film. And Halloween Towns 1 and 2 at least. I think 3 still had the original cast, but I'd be lying if I said I was positive. So then for some more sketchy movies I liked, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. I think still scares me today. Those little gremlin creatures definitely gave me nightmares for an extended period of time. And I think I watched it as an adult. I didn't initially see that movie as a young child. I was a young adult when I saw it.
My name is Sally. I don't like it here.
You just had a nightmare.
And for one more classic that we have to include in this list, The Cabin in the Woods. I love that movie. I just liked how bizarre it was, if I'm being honest, and all the different creatures we saw at the end. Hashtag spoilers, but if you haven't seen that movie, it's kind of old, so you should have seen it by now.
Oh, shit.
Continuing on the movie theme, the movie that scared me the absolute most in the history of every horror movie I've ever seen, some of you might laugh at me for this, but Dead Silence.
Beware the stare of Mary Shaw. She had no children, only dolls.
Destroy the dog!
Just something about it really creeped me out, and it's not necessarily because it was dolls. I know there are some people who are either afraid of dolls or not, and so some of those movies are hit or miss for many of you. But something about Mary Shaw wanting to be made into a doll really skeeved me out, and when the kid pulled her coffin over, I guess it was the coffin, and saw her as a human being made into a doll, ugh, that image is burned into my brain, unfortunately. And for 2 more scary, creepy movies that I think you should check out that are more recent, Apostle, which gives me huge Outlast 2 vibes, at least aesthetically, if not any other plot-based details.
I dream of a world in which each waking day we rise equal. This island, it's our paradise. We have an intruder on our land. We have to find him.
I haven't played Outlast 2, but I will hopefully be playing that on my Halloween stream. So hopefully I'll see more of their comparisons, but my reasoning for playing Outlast 2 is because I really liked the movie Apostle. I thought it was weird and creepy and different. It's very cult vibey, but I loved it, and I think you should check it out if you haven't. And the last one, which I think both Apostle and Witch you can see on Netflix, which is spelled Vvitch, I believe. And it's not necessarily scary. I think it puts the hair up on the back of your neck, almost kind of like Slender Man. It's not necessarily scary, but there's something off. And I like that. I like the suspensefulness of it, and I didn't anticipate the ending, gonna be honest. Maybe some of you did, I did not. So, highly recommend that movie if you haven't seen it. So for my book section, I hope I don't disappoint. I realized as I was prepping for this video that I don't really read any horror books. I read things that are dark and maybe have overarching themes that can be creepy and horror-esque, but I don't read straight up thriller novels or Stephen King for fun. It just isn't my taste in books. So I'm going to give you stuff that can at least be seen as creepy or dark, if you can even take it to being horror. The first one I'm going to mention is yet again something from when I was a child. It was the first creepy-ish book I ever liked. It's definitely more just sci-fi than anything else. It's very fantasy. I wouldn't necessarily call it even creepy or dark, but I think it works within this Halloween theme. The Eye of the Warlock. If you haven't read that, it might be weird as an adult necessarily to pick it up. You might feel that way because it's an easy read, but I really liked it. It's one of the first books I just couldn't put down, and I don't know anyone else who's read it. So I always recommend that as a weird book that someone asks, what was one of the first things you ever got into when you started reading? That's the one I mentioned. To keep it on the dark theme, The Road. Now, unfortunately, this gets more depressing than it does just dark. It's the only book I've ever had to put down because of how upsetting it is, and I had to start over. If you are not in the best of spirits, I would not recommend reading this book just yet. It's a dark one, so keep that in mind. I gave you a warning. For two more that are both creepy and mess with your mind a little bit. So, In Cold Blood, which is supposed to be the breaking down and tell-all of these murders that took place that Truman Capote is telling us about as he's the journalist investigating this and getting to know the murderers. But what makes it so weird is how much Capote is able to kind of mess with your mind to have sympathy for these murderers and perhaps not necessarily believe that they both were the murderers. It's kind of mindfuckery, I'm not gonna lie. But if you haven't seen the movie, I think it's just called Capote, I'd also recommend that just to get an idea of this character. And Philip Seymour Hoffman played him in the movie. So just a lot to unpack there, but he's an interesting guy who can really manipulate the mind, and I don't necessarily mean that in a mean way. He's very charismatic, and the psychology in this book, In Cold Blood, is kind of terrifying. And the last one is not technically a book, but a poem, or sorry, a short story by Edgar Allan Poe. If you've ever read The Telltale Heart, you'll understand. If you haven't, that's a creepy one for you to read in time for Halloween. It'll put you a little bit on edge, not gonna lie. And to think that someone's mind came up with this is kind of amazing and terrifying at the same time. Yet again, for games, the list is super tiny. I apparently like horror movies more than I do horror and other nerdy things in my life. I think it's because in movies I feel the separation, and in a game you're right there, in a book you're alone in bed right there. As bizarre as that may sound, because I guess you could argue watching it on the screen you're also right there. But for some reason I'm really intrigued by horror movies, but games freak me out. So I'm counting this as something I've quote-unquote played, even though I haven't. That's not true. I played it for a few minutes. Resident Evil 2.
No! Get off of me!
I actually played it with a friend in his dorm room in college, And I got so creeped out that I had to just hand him the controller and watch him from behind my hand. Because I'm a wimp when it comes to horror games. But I thought that was a great one, and it super creeped me out, so had to include it. And then for a game I actually do play and enjoy, this is much more dark than it is horror. Little Nightmares. You're playing this girl who's kind of trying to escape, quote unquote, these nightmares around her, and it's just like a very weird and different game. I've never played a game like this before. I think there's a sequel or prequel to it as well. I don't remember the name of it though. But they're sketchy, and the shadows lurking around, it just, I don't know, makes me uneasy. But I like the game, and that's kind of the level at which I'm comfortable playing at regularly. So I can't believe that I'm willing to do a Halloween stream where I'm going to pretty much piss my pants. It'll be great. So for the last section, I'm gonna talk about places that are quote unquote haunted. The last one's not gonna be a haunted place, but it'll make sense when I get there. To keep it topical, I went to school at UConn, and we had this campus called Depot Campus, so it wasn't where the main campus was in stores. It was a little bit further away. You could get there by bus. And one or two of the buildings used to be part of a mental institution many years ago, where they maybe had unorthodox practices and not the most modern methods for treating the mentally ill. So people have claimed that it's still haunted by those patients. Whether it is or isn't, you can decide if you visit, I suppose. But I thought that'd be a fun one to include since I went to that school. And another place I went to was Alcatraz. I went there many years ago with family to visit the sketchy island that it's located on. And there are certain cell blocks to visit that tend to be haunted. And there's a particular cell, I want to say it's 14D, but I could be wrong. There's a particular cell where unruly inmates were usually put, and I think they would kind of go insane in there. So many people say you can hear them screaming or shouting from this cell because they were tormented or kind of left in solitude. And the last one, this is not a haunted place, but I thought it was interesting to include. And I will also give kind of a stipulation or disclaimer with it because I'm not necessarily supportive or a fan of it. Just thought it was a weird thing if you didn't know about it. So McCanny Manor, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Yet again, do I ever know how to pronounce things even though I watched numerous things on it before putting it in this video? This is a haunted house challenge experience located in both Alabama and Tennessee. And the guy in charge of it, you can decide for yourself if you think he's crazy, but pretty much the whole concept behind this haunted challenge is they learn your biggest fears. You sign a 30-page waiver that I think takes between 3 and 4 hours to get through. You have to have a physical done, you have to have doctors signing off, you have to have a mental health evaluation on top of a physical evaluation before you are approved to be part of this challenge, because they pretty much torture you during it. There have been weird interviews that say different things happening, and yes, I get that it's very much a mental game, so maybe everything that supposedly happens to people doesn't. But it is pretty much the absolute scariest haunted house you could ever go into. And I'm surprised that more people aren't mentally scarred from it. Although they might be, and maybe because they signed waivers they can't say anything about it. I'm not entirely sure. But I'll link that below if you just want to see how creepy the videos are. I don't recommend going though. And this is your warning that the videos are also really, they're sketchy. So that'll pretty much wrap up this video on Nerds for Halloween. I know it's a very bizarre title, but it's kind of as good as that was getting. Or was it Geeks for Halloween? I don't even know what I said. Whatever weird title I put here, sure it doesn't make much sense. But I thought it'd be fun to do a nice Halloween segment. And before I go, I'm going to link a bunch of Halloween sales that are happening because Steam's having a sale. It was like Green Monster or something having a sale. PS4, Nintendo Switch, they're all having Halloween sales. Most of them started the 28th and end on the 2nd, which is why I'm trying to get you this video by Halloween so that you have time to still benefit from those sales. I'll include each place that I've found sales on so you can then compare prices, because some of them have them cheaper. Like I got Vampire for $14 on one site and it was 20 something on all the others. Anyway, that'll all be in the description down below so you can benefit from it too, and you can let me know how much fun you're having playing these horror games I'm too scared to play. And with that, we'll wrap up this video. If you guys enjoyed this, please leave a comment, let me know your thoughts, let me know what you want to see in a future video. Be sure to like, and if you haven't subscribed, come join our family. It's a nice family. They're 62 strong right now. We'd like to bump that up a little bit, so join us. And if you like this video, click the others. They're all great. And I'll see ya.